Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular Board of Finance meeting for Monday, May 17th, 2021 to order. First item on the agenda is public forum. Anybody on the virtual meeting that would like to address the Board of Finance in public forum? I do not see anybody besides who's on the screen in front of me. So we'll move on to item number 2, approve minutes of our regular meeting minutes of April 19th, 2021. Do our motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's fun.
I was like, wait a minute, did everybody mute on me? All right. All right, there were a couple of things that I had seen. I think they're more, there's a few typos, but there were a couple of responses. I don't remember if we had any feedback on a couple of items. On page 1, there was a comment that went back to March 15th regarding Ms. Rosito, said that she would check, this is our auditor, and she said she would check with her colleague about municipal attacks. These are cyber attacks. Find out if insurance paid and get back to the board. Did we ever get an answer on that particular item? I think that was in response to a question of, it was Mr. Was it Mr. Trotta? It was me, actually. Regarding cyber attacks.
Mike, I think that was a question I had, if any other towns had actually experienced an attack and if the insurance actually paid.
Right. Originally you did in March, and then I had asked last month if there was a response to it. So I think.
I see.
All right. That's something we could.
Yeah.
Mary Jane,
Mike,
go ahead.
I think I had forwarded a response from Vanessa at one point. I'm not sure if it was sufficient to answer the question.
Okay.
But after the first meeting, I believe I sent a response.
If there was, I apologize if I didn't see it. So I'll look back, and if I get it, then I'll send it to the board.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what my initial question was to her. I know it was about cybersecurity. So if it did not answer that question, please let me know and I will contact her again.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you
Yeah.
indulge me for a moment, we have been in discussions. We've been in discussions with Kerma, our CCM insurance company, as well as HD Seeger, our consultant relative to cyber liability insurance. There are a couple things you should know. One of them is that there are folks who pay attention to who engages and actually secures that type of insurance, so that they can be sure that they may be able to get paid when they attack a municipality. The answer is yes. There have been several municipalities in the state of Connecticut that have been a target of ransomware and have had to pay some tidy sums. So we will continue to work with our insurance broker as well as Kerma to see what's the best course of action for the town of Guilford. Okay.
Great, thank you. I think that's an appropriate response. I don't think we need to go any further with that. That's just wanted a little bit of background on it.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, on page number, let's see, on page 3, there was 4th line down. Ms. Trudeau said she would get a follow-up answer from Mr. Gurnham on that. That's regarding the electricity of $49,000 a month. I think that was, yeah, Mr. Hartman had questioned how that would look in the year where Johnson Controls and solar implemented. Linda, did you send us a response on that? There you go.
Sorry, my computer didn't want to unmute. I did not. I realized that I had started to type out a response and then wanted to get further clarification on something and it sat in my inbox, my outbox, so I apologize.
No problem.
The current charges are going to stay pretty steady. I mean, they'll fluctuate with the seasons. Once the solar is up on Jones, those costs will reduce a little bit. But for the most part, the charges that we see now are going to stay fairly steady.
Okay,
I hope that answers the question.
it does for me.
It's just a typo in the second sentence of the third paragraph, but I questioned how or what that would look like, not who.
Yeah, it was how, right.
I know who I'd like it to look like.
That was one of them. Then in the large paragraph, which is like the 6th or 7th paragraph, just at the beginning, says Ms. Trudeau explained that they brought additional lunchroom aid. So that was a small item. And then on page number 5, under revenues, second paragraph, Mr. Gammon asked about increased revenue in the health department. Mary Jane, you indicated that you would get back to us on that. Is that something you would respond to tonight, or on the health department? I guess the revenue was increased last month.
I guess I thought I did. Let me check my notes and see if I received anything from her.
Okay. And then the last item I have is under right below that, under expenditures, third line, where it says near the end of that third line, it says they health department should be the health department. That's it.
I have an item
Anybody else? Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
on item on page 2, review. Garman asked about payments to ACES. 2 items were for contracted services, and then there's a whole series of tuitions. What's the distinction between contract services and tuition? That was my question. It's just a typo, I think.
Okay, got it. Okay, anybody else?
We brought up it's page 3, 2/3 of the way down. We brought up we did have this discussion about the fuel purchases and leftover unsold fuel. And maybe I never got to make it in the form of a question, but should we pursue this at all? Or was that answered that there's nothing we can do? Can we offer anything back or see if there's any value for unused fuel?
I believe we did come to a conclusion on that. Matt or Mary Jane, do you recall exactly what that was? I believe that once we have it, we can't sell it back.
Contract is pretty specific that we owe them regardless what we do or just how we dispose of those fuels.
Well, the question is, right, okay, so the question is more about, can we offer it? They're not obliged to take anything back. Do we pursue a policy of offering?
To them or on the market in general? It's
You
probably,
would think it would, the most efficient, the easiest, the most convenient thing to do would be go back to our supplier.
yeah, and see if they want to take it at, and obviously at some kind of discount rate, I would suspect.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But we should reserve the right to sell it to somebody else, probably. Bob, we'll push that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just a general point.
Yes, go ahead.
On item 5 of the minutes, review and report of expenditures. Under revenues and under expenditures, the last line in both paragraphs simply makes reference to discussion on increase in revenue and discussion on tree removal. It would be helpful if we had at least encapsulated what the discussion was about. I mean, was there some point? Otherwise, anyone reading these minutes doesn't know what this discussion was all about. Was a discussion on the increase in revenues for the golf course, and was there some explanation? Because I think I was the one who raised it on tree removal and medical. I raised it on tree removal. What was the discussion? Is it that we had enough budget in there, or that we we needed some explanation in there. But I don't see what purpose it serves to have just that kind of general umbrella in each case.
Okay.
I don't know how you go back on it now, but I
So,
think it should be guarded in the future. So that anytime something is mentioned, it's mentioned with a kind of policy question in mind.
okay, so noted. So we'll check that. Make sure there's more detail in the discussion in the future. Tracy, would you be able to go back and see possibly what the detail was on those? Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just in Tracy's defense, I think she's done an amazing job over the years of picking out the things that are of substance to include in the minutes. And I certainly welcome her offer to go back and take a look at that, but traditionally she has been pretty on the mark with capturing any discussions that were of substance.
I would not disagree with that. I think
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
there's just a couple items there I think just need further detail, that's all. All right. Anything further? Okay, all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed or abstentions? Okay. Item number 2 under agenda item 2, special meeting of April 22nd, 2021. This simply is the meeting we had regarding the mill rate setting. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
So moved.
So, second,
All right, is there discussion on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions.
I'll abstain.
Okay,
Abstain.
thank you. All right, item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. Mr. DeMayo, chairman of the standing building committee, is with us yet again. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Anybody have, I guess I do have one, the only question that I have is regarding item number 8, and I'm sure we all saw this, regarding the performance contracting, the first sentence or the first paragraph. There seemed to have been an incident with the solar work. Just want to make sure that there were there was no backlash or any injuries or anything regarding that item that we should be aware of.
The Standing Building Committee was not made aware of any harm done to a student. We were just made aware that there was an incident, and the work in that area was stopped until better safety protocol and coordination between student activities and the roof work above could be better managed.
Okay.
So I had a question about that section as well. I guess kind of reading a little further into that section, it seemed like we might give up on having that part of the solar be in the project. Am I reading that correctly?
You may be referring to the solar that was originally slated for the Public Works building. And there's about 170 kW that still was not able to be built in the performance contract due to a lack of available space in the school system or buildings within the town that could structurally handle the solar. So we were able to add about half of what was lacking onto Melissa Jones. And there's still about 170 K out there. We've relieved, or the town in general, not the Standing Building Committee, but we relieved the town, the Johnson Controls of their obligation, because it was clear in their contract that once they did engineering analysis and the structures weren't able to handle the solar, then they would be relieved of that obligation within their contract. The town still has the ability to find a location for 170 kW on their own and with the town's consultant, AGC. I believe I have that correct, and Matt may just correct me on some of the information here.
Yep.
We're looking to possibly put that solar up on Baldwin.
Correct. David, CGI is the consultant, and you're right. It is, we are looking for alternative locations. We want to try to hold Johnson Controls to that full KW, the full kilowatt load. It's still, that's still under discussion phase.
We will bring that up on next month's standing building committee meeting under old business. The issue with Baldwin is the age of the roof.
Right.
And we would have to incorporate a roof project into this overall project in order for solar to make sense in terms of longevity.
Right.
The roof doesn't have much life left in it, and we need something that has at least a 25-year runway on it. But there are some alternates out there, and if done properly, some of the roof costs can be rolled into the into the solar project. So,
Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question, David. This all seems to revolve around roofs, and roofs don't last forever, but land seems to. Is there any discussion or any contemplation of putting solar on the ground?
there was out at Baldwin, an area to the I guess the northeast of the school. There's a pathway that leads back toward the river, and then if you follow those trails, it goes back on toward Bittner Park.
Yep.
There was, I think there's some other capital plans for that piece of land within the town's
Master plan.
overall development plan. And we didn't think it was a good idea to take that land at this point.
Okay. Just curious, because we, in that neck of the woods, we're coming up with another piece of property. It just
We
makes
could,
me-
I'm not sure who can address that with the standing building committee, but we certainly could bring it up. At the
Right.
next meeting.
No, it's just the roof thing versus,
Yeah,
a certain amount of land that we have available.
yeah, the ground mounts are very popular, and we did look at it, and I believe there was some other plans for the piece of property that made sense.
Good. I just didn't want to, I was just curious to know if it was hung up because it had to go on, the contract said it had to go on a roof. Is it possible
No.
to go on the ground?
Not at all.
Great.
Not at
Thank
all.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Bob. And I'm kind of curious though, if we don't find an alternate site, the language, today in the SBC was that we might consider an adjustment to the contract. I'm curious, would we be able to adjust? Obviously we'd lose some savings without the additional panels, but would that also adjust our costs?
Yes, it would. Obviously,
Okay.
capital costs would be avoided for the for those panels. And I just a quick note to both David and Bob's point. Bob, yes, ground solar is clearly an option. One of the challenges we have are the town spaces that are wide open, other than already on school space, on school grounds, which are traditionally playing fields.
Yeah.
And I think Dave mentioned the Baldwin situation. The track that I think Dave is referring to is potentially an avenue or a pathway for the long sought connection between Bittner and Long Hill Road. So that might not be the best, but it's every idea is worth pursuing. And then I think the last reference, Bob, you made is the purchase of the piece of property we've made up on the corner of Long Hill and Route 80, potentially for the eventual public works facility. So I'm not sure how far we can extend this out, but I think, as everyone probably realizes, we're a couple of years away from doing anything up at that Route 80 and Long Hill property.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else for standing building?
I have one in item 11
Item 11?
on
Okay.
the Jones elevator repair.
Yes.
There's a reference in there to the fact that if we accelerated the schedule, it could reduce the downtime on that. And there was a question raised, I think it was by Mr. Burnham, that the other option is to have the contractor providing a quote for an accelerated schedule. My question is, I don't know if David has this information at hand, but what would it do to the bid? Because it's never a healthy situation to be down on an elevator, even though it's of minor use in that building. We still have it there beyond the use of by custodians. We have an elevator that's presumably for staff and children.
Yeah, as of this moment, I have no further information from Cliff on what the reaction was from the contractor, or if it was even possible to accelerate the schedule. It's obviously predicated on the lead time of the elevator. Sometimes they'll slip you ahead of somebody if you pay a little more money. But I don't have any further news. I imagine we'll have something by our June meeting. If Cliff has, I'll reach out to Cliff tomorrow to see if there's anything new that he could share with me. And if so, I'd be happy to send it along to Michael.
The only point I would make to that is I was wondering about the expedited schedule as well. David, I don't have to tell you this. We've recently been parts of conversations that have to do with labor and material costs.
Oh, yeah.
In construction, and they are exploding right now, and lead times are exploding. And so we should be very cognizant of that going forward, that it may not be a bad idea on some of these projects, depending on labor, material, and lead times, that there might have to be some pushes. It is an extraordinary time in 2021 right now to try to get any material and get skilled workforce. So it'll be challenging. I know David's dealing with that on a daily, probably hourly basis. So just something to bring to the board's attention based on our knowledge.
Thank you.
Anything else for David and the Standing Building Committee before we move on? Okay. David, thank you. Appreciate your
My
time
pleasure.
as always. And we will talk to you next month.
All right. Have a good evening, all.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Item number 2, pension committee minutes. Anything for pension? Investment report or the minutes?
Mary Jane, is that the first time we crossed 80 million?
I think so.
Since
Okay,
I've
one-
been here at least, so probably yes.
Yeah,
I think I have
One-
one question. Are we always kind of trailing a month behind? I sort of took notice that it was from the end of March.
You are, because you're reviewing the minutes from that time period, and this is the report that goes with those minutes.
Okay. I don't even know if I noticed that before. I thought we were just previous month.
they meet just after.
The
we do.
date's really small up there, Jonathan, so that might be it.
And Bob's right. The committee meets on this Wednesday, usually 2 days after your meeting. So
Yeah,
there'll be fresh numbers available on Wednesday. They probably already exist. Mary Jane probably has a report ready for the pension committee, but
Right,
Or-
but it goes to the pension committee before I distribute it to anyone else.
agree.
Right. So we're gonna have to have a meet on Saturdays then.
that's
I'll
correct.
send you the report, Bob. You're welcome to meet whenever you'd like.
You know, I got one more question too. I noticed that you're doing this pension calculations review, almost like a little bit of an audit of 1 or 2 employees here and there and what their package was. Was there anything that prompted that?
Yeah, discussion
Did
on
we
the
kind of make a
pension.
mistake once or?
That
No.
Jonathan, great question. That was the one I was going to serve up. Is it
Okay.
is it being just proactive, or is it due to an issue?
It's absolutely been being proactive. The pension committee has had extensive discussions about the data that they receive and how it's put together. So we had Attorney Barrett at a couple of meetings, and they put this process together where quarterly they will choose, pick from a hat, or however it's done, one to review. It's just one more step in the process to make sure nothing is missed.
Yeah, I want to applaud the pension committee for exercising true governance. There was a question raised as to the efficacy of people approving these awards on a monthly basis or whenever they show up, and not really having a full understanding of what they were approving. So they elected to move forward with a process like this, which does a deeper dive into specific audit, not audit, but specific pension awards. So I think I applaud them for doing good governance.
Great. All right. Anything else on pension? Great. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, review and accept the report of expenditures to the Board of Education for April 2021. It looks like Mr. Hirsch is our reporter.
Yes.
Reviewer. I'm sorry, Board of Ed reviewer and reporting to us. So Dick, it's all yours.
Okay, well, the expenditures for a month of April were $4,958,000, $88.96. That's represents 77.16% of the budget compared to 76.41. So there's a small difference from year to year. Under employee benefits, we have much higher unemployment costs this year. Last year, out of that account, we spent 4.6% of the predicted unemployment costs. This year, we spent 102% at this point. A lot of it, obviously, because of COVID, and under purchase services, there's been a significant savings on the electrical bill, partly because of the performance contract is finally coming to bear, as well as incentives that were part of that. So we've spent 54% for our purchase services on that line versus 87% last year. So there was a discussion, I think, last finance meeting when I was reporting about whether or not we're going to begin to start seeing some of those savings. And here's part of that now. Under the tuition line, continued good news. Well, we're approximately $330,000 under our budget. And even better news, we're now anticipating maybe a larger payout from the state on anticipated excess cost grant return, so that in fact, if this were to continue, we'll be significantly under budget for tuition this year. With regard to the warrants, there are just a couple of items that are minor interest. On page 6, there's J. DeVoe. We're paying for snow plowing. That seems a little late in the season, but it's because it was a bill in arrears. They billed late, so we haven't been snow plowing for a while. And on page 9, the treasurer, under the treasurer, we that $41,000 is really for our purchase of unleaded gas through in the city pumps, and some shared public audit costs with the city. And those are, I think, the highlights that I saw in that review.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
I apologize because I've probably gotten some answers to these as we've gone along, but I just wanted a refresher why we were running over a little bit on legal services, I think it was.
So that is due in part to some of the contract extensions that were negotiated, as well as MOUs for the reopening of school. So we had to renegotiate some contracts, as well as a little bit of special education contract renewal, special education legal work for some settlements. And then we are going into negotiations with 3 unions starting now. So we've got 3 more unions that we have to renegotiate with.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Question?
well, actually, let me ask the question. Well, yeah, let me ask this question first because it's the one we're all targeting probably anyway. You provided a projection regarding all of the projected surplus expenses for COVID. You did the spreadsheet, the summary. Thank you for doing that. And it looks as if the anticipated additional appropriation is estimated at half at what it was last month, which is continued to be fantastic news to hear and see. Is that based more on anticipated projected savings or simply the way the grant money and the funding will be spent, or a combination of both?
It's a combination of a couple things. Some anticipated savings in some accounts, little bits here and there. There was additional energy incentives that were received. So we will be getting approximately $140,000 from energy incentives that I had not included in my projection last month. We had a change in an outplacement, which has saved us some tuition money, as well as I adjusted a little bit the excess cost grant amount that we anticipate receiving. I am hearing that it's going to be a lot higher than even what I am projecting on here. We'll find out at the end of the month, but I'm hearing it could be close to 80%. I adjusted my tuition report to 72%. I didn't want to go too high yet, but that'll bring in some additional savings. So right now we've cut it down to 155,000, and we're hoping that next month when we come to you with a final number that it's going to be even smaller, or possibly even coming back saying we won't need anything. Keeping my fingers crossed.
Excellent. Ken, did you want to?
Yeah, you may have taken care of this question, but in your cover letter, Linda, you indicated that the supplies and materials are lower this year than the prior year. My question is whether the savings have been are assuming a reduction or a deferral of costs to next year.
I would say it's more of a reduction. The schools have been very good about only ordering what they need, being not in person all the time. That changed some of the way that we delivered instruction. So some of our costs have changed. I don't think this is going to be deferring much to next year at all.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question, and this may open Pandora's box a little, but I don't think any American Rescue Funds money is in there. And, that I don't know the timing of when that'll come in or the accounting that might allow it to be applied to this year's expenses. But I was wondering if there's any news on that. I'm certainly not keeping up with it, but quite a bit of money is coming our way. And I'm wondering how we may be able to apply it, or if that's starting to come to light. Maybe a question more for Matt than Linda, or both.
It is a good question. I know, I believe it was last week, there was more direction on the spending of that money. I do not know what it is. I was not able to tune into that webinar on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it was last week. Matt, do you have any?
Yeah, Mike, I have some ideas on what the American Rescue Plan means for the municipal money. I have not seen the guidance, and I'm not sure anyone has seen the guidance because that's coming from the state of Connecticut. on the education side. I do know that there are several ways that money can be spent. Some are enrichment programs to make up for the loss of the learning loss that occurred during the course of the year. And by the way, this money can be spent over 2 years and perhaps as many as 2.5 budget cycles, because I think it goes to the December of 2024. So the rush to judgment on how we spend this money is a fool's errand. There are going to be long-term ramifications relative to this, particularly as it relates to what our students have missed over the past year. I'm not sure. I think it's safe to say we don't know where the holes are quite yet. However, I'm sure that the superintendent and his team are working on potential avenues to utilize that $921,000 that is available to the district over the next couple of years. On the town side, the number is substantial. It's about $6.5 million. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's about $6.5 million. And I don't think we are precluded necessarily from spending that on educational purposes as well. We still, even though the guidance came out last week, it does not have definitive answers as to if can we support educational initiatives with that funds, or does that have to be for the 4 or 5 buckets that were illuminated in the guidance? So it's a bit premature. This is an exploratory thing. One of the things that we have asked for through CCM, as well as through Council of Small Towns, is to establish some kind of review process where a specific question comes up by a municipality as to, is this an eligible expense or a non-eligible expense? We're looking for that kind of clearing either through the state or through the federal government. So that's a long way to say we really don't know specifically all of the aspects of what we can spend it for. I particularly don't know about on the education side. I'm a little clearer on the town side.
Dr. Bell, Tracy, would you like to? Looks like
Yeah,
you want to say something.
I know I'm nodding my head because I'm agreeing with Mr. Hoey. We are, if Linda has heard something in the last couple of days that I have not heard, she should certainly feel free to speak up. But the guidance we have gotten to date really speak to criterion around, as Mr. Hoey suggested, really supporting students as we move forward in the next year and the coming years, identifying where those support needs are given impacts of the pandemic. But again, until we get more clarity and until we know when the money is coming, we really can't consider putting it towards anything at this time.
Okay.
I want to highlight something that happened over the last couple of weeks. There were some grant monies that had been made available through the state, through the state's allocation, the monies that weren't earmarked for each of our specific municipalities. And it related to summer camps and summer enrichment programs. And I witnessed something that was absolutely remarkable in a very short window of time. Park and Recreation, Youth and Family Services, and the school district put together a grant application, an innovative grant application, to expand the opportunity for kids to attend summer enrichment and camp programs. So it's just the stuff that's happening right now is actually, it's fast and furious. And it is, I've said this to people before. I think with all of this money around, we are only limited by our imagination for ways to try to spend this to help our students and help our community.
Is it out of the realm of possibility, though, to say that, we do maybe first order of business, we want to recover expenses that were not covered by other grants for COVID-19?
Jonathan, Dr. Balstraci here, we really can't do that if we don't know what the criteria are for the monies that are coming to us, and if the indication of what those criteria will be are for expenses that are supporting students moving forward. Both of those things are precluding consideration of what you're suggesting.
I can't say I've read the federal bill, but, can the state really limit anything, any directive from the federal bill? Seems like what you can and can't spend it on is in the bill already, no?
But the state is going to be providing school systems across the state with guidance and interpretation of that information. So we are waiting to and have suggested what that will look like. But again, it is not concrete. The money is not here. And we don't have our marching orders at this time. But in fact, that has been the indication that the state of Connecticut will indeed provide school districts across the state with the criteria for spending the money that comes to each of our districts.
And Jonathan, just to the other portion of your question, yes, COVID, the ARP money can be used to offset revenue or expense losses, particularly revenue on the town side. So we have the opportunity in the aggregate, although the languages, we're trying to parse the language. There's one section that talks about the aggregate of your anticipated revenues, which is an interesting way to couch it, because they actually say in the guidance, the 151-page guidance document that I think I've skimmed through part of it. I know Mary Jane's been through a good portion of it. We are allowed to assume that our revenues would have grown by 4.1% this year. All right. I don't think I know we did not anticipate in our budget documents that we were going to grow our revenues by 4.1%, because I think our spending increase was significantly less than that for this fiscal year. So there are some opportunities here to apply some of those COVID or the American Rescue Plan monies to a anticipated shortfall based on that 4.1%. So we could certainly cover gaps throughout the budget.
Okay, and then the apportionment for Guilford is approximately 7.4 million. Is that what it is?
Now, 6.5 million on the town side, 921, I think it's 920 or 921 on the Board of Education side. And those two are completely separate.
Okay, back of the envelope though, about 7.4 million total.
Correct.
A lot of money.
Yeah, it's a generational opportunity, Jonathan. And by the way, I'll make this statement now in case you were going to ask the question later. You cannot use any of those funds to offset tax increases. You cannot use any of those funds to pay down pension obligations. And there's one other major criteria which make it impossible to do something that is considered a one-time opportunity.
You ultimately have to justify every application, every amount of money that you would use out of that, you have to justify. So,
which is why Mary Jane wants to know the details. She does not look good in prison stripes.
I don't know.
Orange isn't our color.
Was the other category debt, paying down debt? Mr.
No,
Howard?
yeah, right, Bob. Thank you very much. It is paying down debt.
So the Board of Education's amount is $971,068. And then there's a 20% set aside for learning recovery, which is $194,354. We just got the award amounts it's coming out. The state is saying that our application is supposed to be coming out next week. They were 2 or 3 weeks late with the ESSER 2 application. So I'm not convinced that we're even going to see our application and further guidance next week. So we don't know, but we have been told by the state that the ARP money is really supposed to be forward thinking. It's to get us through the recovery and get us back on track. It is not to be used for, or not recommended to be used for reimbursing for past expenses that we have had due to COVID. That's what ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 and the CRF money was for, was to cover those expenses.
okay. Why don't we, anything else on the financials? I had one on the warrants and one on the packet that was sent. Let me do the packet first, just because I've got it open. On page 5 of the Operations Committee, it was reported about the installation of the chiller enclosure at the high school, and was completed, and it's hopeful that that will resolve the noise issues. Has there been any feedback on how that is performing? Because this is back on April 5th, so we've had some time that's been there. So the neighbors at Long Hill, I know that's been an outstanding issue for a number of years. And so now it's finally been addressed, which is great. I'm just wondering if there's been any report back on that.
I have not heard a report. I know they were going to retest the sound measures. I don't know if that retest has occurred yet. I will double check with Cliff Gurnham tomorrow, and I will let you know if there's been anything further on that issue.
That'd be great. Thank you. On the warrants, the one thing I had was also, I believe, on the high school, and I just got to find it. It was a retaining wall. It's on page 10. The high school retaining wall, 10,200. I'm just wondering where that took place, and is that part of is that part of the capital? Is that part of the operational capital?
Who was the vendor on that one, Mike?
It was 10,200 on page 10. And it was right in the middle. Quiet Star Industries.
Actually, I believe that is the retaining wall that is going around the chiller.
Is that, so it's one and the same?
I believe it's one and the same, but I will double check that as well and get back to you tomorrow on that.
Interesting. Okay, great. Well, that answered the question. It's a 2 for 1. All right. Anything else on warrants? Packet? Anything at all?
595 building, I noticed there's a warrant for 42.3 on new windows. Is that a complete job for that whole building, or what?
Yes, that is all the windows that needed to be replaced in that building. We're slowly trying to work away through some of that building so we can get that renovated.
Again, is that money, are those monies that are being spent out of the operation capital, or is that's not out of bonded money, is it?
No, it's not bond money. It's
Operating capital.
This is out of our capital funds.
Okay.
I believe we've tapped into any of the funds that the town is providing for that as of yet.
I'm trying to remember all the line items that were under capital. So capital improvements. So I was wondering if that was one of them. All right. All right. If nothing further, I will entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of April 2021 in the amount of $4,958,088.96.
So moved.
Second.
Whoops.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, recusals. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 5, review and approve a report of expenditures for town government for April 2021. And I believe we will start with revenue.
Okay, I have a number of things I wanted to discuss under revenues, and yes, I have an answer for your health question.
Excellent, thank you.
So I'm going to discuss a lot of the different departments. The Selectmen's Department, the Selectmen includes 173,000 Eversource incentive. Linda referred to this earlier in her review. A portion of that will be transferred to the Board of Education. We are working on putting the numbers together based on location where that money applies. So as soon as we have that, I'm working with Cliff and Linda on that. So as soon as we have that, the Board of Ed will receive their funding. She did give an estimate during her review. So that's that line item. The town clerk line item, according to them, and I quote, sales of homes have gone through the roof. So that's why the town clerk conveyance and other fees are higher than normal at this time. My finance interest continues to lag behind. As we've already discussed, we are hoping to recover some of that loss in revenue through the American Rescue Plan. I wanted to just note that I was on a training webinar last week where there were a number of experts in the banking industry, and they suggest that it could take us 2 to 3 more years to get back to where we were. So we're going to have this issue potentially for another couple of years on the interest side. They said it will take a while before the feds and others to be comfortable enough to make any large adjustments in interest rates. So it's a good thing we brought that way down for the coming year. The engineering department is a direct correlation to the increase in building permits, and that's going to be a recurring theme here. Building permits are causing increases in many of the land use departments. Tax collection has, at the end of April, $300,000 remaining revenue to bring them to 100%. As of mid-May, we've already brought in half of that $300,000. So as I mentioned last month, I'm even more confident that we should be able to at least bring in the amount that is budgeted, if not going over like we have seen in past years. Golf continues to be a go-to activity. Their greens fees are well up over 150% collected and moving forward as we speak. The police have increased special duty. There's a lot of utility work going on, and that's what is accounting for that. Public Works is still the same story from the storms last year and at the stump dump. The health department is seeing an increase because of all of these building permits coming in, drinking water and septic permits, along with a brand new fee, B100A, which is a preliminary septic review. All potential projects need to go through this preliminary review before they actually apply for their other permits. And according to the health director, that's a new permit within the last 5 months. Not that it's big dollars, but it does bring in quite a bit as well. Youth and Family Services are seeing the amount of clients they have doubled this year from last year, which is why their revenue is higher than normal. The Board of Ed ECS money, Linda also discussed this in her presentation. We do have currently excess costs of about $39,000 in that line item that will remain in the town's budget revenue until such time Linda and the Board of Ed feel it's necessary to transfer that money. So I believe we'll know more next month, but that's what that extra money is for. Other than that, I pretty much talked to almost about every department, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I had one question about fire.
Okay.
Am I correct that ambulance revenue is down?
Well, it's very slightly, but we do anticipate them meeting their budget this year.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on revenue? Okay. Expenses.
All righty. Lots to talk about here as well. The town clerk, the finance department, IT, registrar of voters, fire, public works, and health all have COVID expenses that will be reclassed due to grant revenue that we've received through COVID. So we've recently received the money or the anticipation of money for those items. So those will be coming out of this budget and transferred to correlate with the revenue coming in. Fire, police, and public works in all of their overtime lines. We have pending FEMA overtime requests. We recently received our overtime funding from last fiscal year, and we are putting together that request for this year. It may seem like we're waiting to the last minute, but we've had 14 grants to manage between July 1 and now, and they all had more severe deadlines than the FEMA. So we've been working really hard to get all the other funding in that had more deadlines, whereas FEMA is a little bit more open on this end. So we're going to be that's our next thing to tackle. And I just want to thank the fire department, in particular, Officer Clint Haverkamp. He is my go-to FEMA overtime person. If nothing else, COVID has found all of our departments working together on these grants, and nothing is falling on any one person's shoulders. And big shout out to the fire department for all of their help. Also in fire, we did put in the last request for the first round of the 3-year funding for the SAFER grant. Since it is the very last quarter, we do have the money that left over that we've been approved moving forward, but because it's the last quarter, it is having a more diligent review on the state side. So I haven't received that funding back from the SAFER grant. So there's a significant amount of expenses in the fire overtime for that as well, that will hopefully be coming in shortly. Also, we at first we're not going to be reimbursed for anything from Tropical Storm Isaias, but we did finally meet the threshold that we needed through FEMA, and we have are finalizing that grant right now. So natural resources and public works, you'll see specifically in natural resources, I think there's like $30,000 or $40,000 in their ICAS line. We are confident that through FEMA, we will receive 75% reimbursement for that, along with expenses in public works. So, you know, I have close to $300,000 of known grant money coming in that will be applying to some of these expenses. And if I kind of take into account what I think we'll get as of right now, it does bring our expenses down under 80%, which is right where we were last year. So if you have any particular questions on any of the other line items, I hope, if not, obviously, hopefully by June, you know, I might have some of these adjustments made as we are confident of the monies coming in, but definitely by the final review of the year.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
I have a question. The Eversource benefits were coming into the selectmen line for the costs of the performance contract. Which line are those in? I think you've told me before.
On the town side, it's every single department that has a building has that expense.
Okay, you portion them out.
If need be, I suppose we could. We do have it, but we do know which buildings and locations they apply to.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, you're trying to talk, but you're.
Oh, you're muted, Matt.
Matt, you're muted if you're trying to chime in.
My apologies. My dog was barking and had to shut it down. I think, Jonathan, you might have been asking about where are the costs associated with the energy performance contract.
Yeah.
On the town side, that is in debt service.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you meant where the incentives would have been expensed out of, so.
Okay. Maybe it's a little of both, huh?
Well, yeah, because the incentives are coming back because the idea is that we spent too much on our Eversource bill, you know, so, you know, that's why we're getting.
I see.
yeah, getting those incentives back, so. That's why we know by location where those monies go.
Thank you.
Anything else on expenditures?
Yeah, I have one question on the warrant, for
Go ahead.
page 17.
Okay, we can move to warrants, which,
Oh, I'm sorry.
which,
I'll hold
which-
on that.
I don't know which warrant we're going to, so.
We can move over to warrants. Which one, Ken?
It's the fire department. I was just wondering, there's a billing from Yale New Haven Hospital for $12,500 for medical services. What does that involve? Is that physical checkups on the whole fire department staff? What is that?
Can
What does
you tell
that
me where
number
you're,
cover?
can you tell me where you're finding this so that I can at least
Yeah,
see
I'm
what you're
finding
looking
it
at?
on page 17. Bottom of page 17. Invoices on April 5 and April 20.
Yes, as you can see, the description, it's the exams for the members of the fire department and ambulance.
My question is that for the entire staff?
I'd have to review the invoices to see if it's,
Is it an annual examination, annual health exam?
I believe so, but I can get some more detail directly from the fire department so that I don't answer incorrectly.
While we're on warrants, anything else on warrants? Anyone has? We can move over to medical. Well,
Okay.
we finally had a hit that we expected that would happen. On the claims, we are still trending though lower on the ISL at 33%. So even though we took a hit this year, this in April on the claims, there wasn't much hit on the stop loss, or doesn't appear to be. So, anything further on medical? And we have 2 months left, so. All right. Anything else for the town, Mary Jane?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, anything else for the town and Mary Jane?
Oh.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of April 2021 in the amount of $2,539,675.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, of recusals, try again. All right. Heading on to item number 6, consider and take possible action to designate the Board of Finance member to serve as OPEB or other post-employment benefits trust member. There are a number of documents that are posted on our board pack. I was thinking about summarizing, but Mary Jane or Matt, maybe if you would like to summarize, I would be trying to read off of this, but I know earlier this month, the Board of Selectmen has instituted or implemented this OPEB trust, which requires members, which I'm now struggling to find where all the different the members need to, who needs to be on here.
Would you like me to jump in?
Yes,
Could you? Yes, please. Because I know it's in here and I can't find the document that has all the list of all the members that need to be part of the, be a member of the trust.
So a public hearing on the OPEB trust and all the related ordinance changes was held on May 3rd.
Right.
And the trust was subsequently approved by the Board of Selectmen at their meeting. So the trust is in place at this point. So as Mike said, there are copies of all the documents, maybe even more than you want to see or maybe more than you need on board pack, but everything that was given at public hearing and to the selectmen is on your board pack. So part of the documentation requires the trustees to be named for OPEB. And the trustees are the chairman of the pension committee, the finance director, a designated member of the Board of Selectmen, a designated member of the Board of Finance, and a designated member of the Board of Education. So what we're ultimately looking for from you today is that designee to be a trustee. So on the trust documents, pages 6 and 7 outline the powers of the trustees. It's very similar to what we have with the pension committee. It's responsible for making sure the money is in the right accounts and, you know, paying the bills and moving the money around, making sure there's money to, you know, pay expenditures. So 99.9% of the time I act as trustee. I put together that paperwork that we give the pension committee every month, and I work closely with the consultants and our managers to move the money around based on recommendations of the pension committee and that type of things. So but there are other trustees, you know, we would all be trustees of the plan and all have those powers. Like I said, although for my position, the finance director is normally handles a lot of that upon direction of what will be the OPEB board, which will be the pension committee. So, and again, to a lot of detail, we've talked about OPEB for a long time. September 2018, I think is about the first time that I started to talk about this, maybe a little bit before that. So everything that we've discussed is how it's gone into place. We will be using the $1.2 million as startup going in July, and that will be the town and the board's contribution for the 21-22 fiscal year. And then we'll be talking about how to continue that moving forward.
I think it's important to note that both the Board of Education and the town engaged and agreed in principle to hiring a specialist from Shipman and Goodwin to craft and create the documents that you have in front of you, which are consistent with statutory requirements. One of the things that I think needs to be noted here, ironically, is the representative from the Board of Selectmen has to be of the opposite political persuasion than the first selectman. So Sue Renner has agreed to serve as our the Board of Selectmen's representative on the trust board, on the OPEB trust board. And I believe that I think the Board of Education has delayed their decision until they have a workshop. I believe it might be Wednesday. Is it as soon as Wednesday? Is it?
We will be meeting next Monday.
Monday the 24th.
Yes.
Monday the 24th. So, but nonetheless, the methodologies are all prescribed in state statute as to the formation and the representation on these on this trust.
And is it, yes, thank you, Matt, for mentioning that. And is it also, so now that Sue Renner has been indicated as the rep or selected as a representative, so the Board of Education, Board of Finance, when we select, there was a stipulation in there about parties that there cannot be, how does it work about majority?
It's similar to any other board or commission.
Right.
No more than 2 of the 3 designees can be of the same party.
Right. Okay. So regarding our representative, Veronica Wallace, thank you very much for stepping up and asking. And I did see, Jonathan, that you sent an email shortly thereafter that you would be willing also to serve. As far as I'm concerned on the representative, I just want to make sure that whoever's in that position really has the most knowledge or has the best knowledge regarding this particular, regarding the OPEB trust. That would just be, and I know it's not me. I'm totally honest about that. When it comes to, all of the pensions and OPEB, I understand it, but when it comes to having a representative, I also have enough to do. So it'd be great to, have somebody else be able to step in that role. And had the Board of Education selected, then I think we would be limited, or we would be limited to who we would select or what designated party. So we could just have a discussion about this regarding representative. Veronica, you've indicated interest in Jonathan. You've indicated interest.
And if I can mention, I'm probably the most familiar with it, if anyone here. It started when I was on pension.
And I would also say that, Bob, you have been on the pension committee and instrumental in a lot of this discussion as well. So really what it comes down to, I mean, as far as knowledge goes, if party had no particular say in this, my choice on this would be Mr. Hartman to be on this because of that knowledge that he has and brought with OPEB and pension. So we could just have further discussion regarding that, knowing that we are not stipulated by any kind of a party line on this.
No, and if I could just
because the Board of Education has not made their decision
No.
yet. So
I can just tell you the bit I know about it. This all this started out, as Mary Jane said, in 2018 when I was on the pension board. It's something required by the state. Guilford's a little bit late in getting going. It is a relatively small amount of money when you look at it in comparison to the 80 million that's under management by the pension committee for the defined benefits program. It'll grow. It'll be largely managed. There won't be much for the trustees to do. Mary Jane will do all the heavy lifting on the administration side. A lot of the investment recommendations will come from our current pension manager recommendations, and it will be not exactly the same portfolio, the same makeup, just because it's too small. It'll be a smaller quotient, smaller number of investments, but it'll largely replicate what we're already doing. So there's not. I'm familiar with it. I know why it's there. I know what to do with it. But it'll be the committee's position.
Okay. Does anybody else?
Sorry,
Megan, go ahead, please.
clarifying question. We can only nominate one person to the trust? Okay.
So I've got some concerns for the taxpayer. I think I've kind of brought them up before, that it's going to take some money to fund the trust originally, and at what speed do we do that, and at what burden to our current taxpayers? There's some long-term thinking here that's very positive, that if once you build the trust, we're in a better financial position to cover the expenses. But it does represent a burden to the taxpayers to have to pay the current expenses as well as begin to fund the trust. So those are some issues that I'm concerned about going forward. And then I guess I have maybe a couple of questions about some of the fees that we're going to incur now to manage the trust. I think we're going to need to get another actuarial report.
Well, we are already paying for an actuarial. We are already paying for an actuarial report on OPEB, so that does not change. It's a very minor fee to open another Wells Fargo managed account. I believe they quoted me $2,500 for the year. So I just want to make it clear that as a trustee, that doesn't give you any more power to make any of those decisions. Those decisions will still be made by the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance. So, being the trustee only puts your name on the bank account, and you can move money around to pay the bills. It's not a power position of any type. If I'm saying that wrong, Bob, please.
No, I absolutely agree. As I said, the heavy lifting is done. The recommendations are made by the investors, more or less can be managed by the pension committee, who will go over this once a month. You as financial director actually do all the administration. I wouldn't use the word honorary, but it's a job of familiarity and knowledge. As far as Jonathan's point, this is meant to be a long-term cost saver. It's supposed to smooth out peaks and valleys and expenses going forward. It is meant to save taxpayers money in the end, or we wouldn't go there.
Correct. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Oh, Veronica, I'm sorry, Veronica, you want to say something?
No, that I was just gonna say, I only threw my name in the mix because I have a background in human resources of some depth, the last 3 professional jobs that I've had. So I've had some experience with the pensions and so forth. And it's been an area that I support the town doing. So I have an interest in moving forward. That was why I sent the email.
Mhm.
I mean, I would support Veronica's nomination to the trust.
I would as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but I would suspect that Dr. Balistraci might want to participate in this conversation, because whatever you do tonight is going to restrict her ability to do something on Monday night.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point.
I appreciate the opportunity. I don't think I'm going to put myself in the position of dictating what happens here. I will say that if you choose a Republican representative, we will by default be choosing one of our Democratic board members to participate. As was suggested, we did briefly bring up the OPEB at our last Board of Ed meeting, but our members simply needed more time. The documents did not get to them in a timely fashion, and simply needed more time to be prepared for a thorough and intelligent conversation about it. So I haven't talked to any of my members in detail about who would want to participate. We obviously have Mr. Sands, who has served on the pension committee and certainly has experience in financial matters. But again, I have not asked him to serve, and we did not discuss whether anyone else on the board would be interested. So I thank the opportunity to weigh in, but I really support the choice of this board to choose who they feel would best represent the Board of Finance.
I guess I'll just chime in and just say, I think Veronica and Bob have both an interesting perspective here for this kind of role. But I would support Bob too. He's been involved with portfolio management for so long. He's got a unique position to do that. I wonder if I could ask another question about the OPEC trust, though. I think I caught a meeting where the Board of Education had some concerns about the apportionment of the costs and the benefits, and to sort of make sure there was some kind of segregation between contributions that the Board of Education made and the town made, and that they were paired up with the actual expenses for the OPEB benefits. Did anything change since you've had that meeting, or is that still kind of an issue that's worthy of discussing?
Mr. Trotta, that again, what happened unfortunately at the Board of Ed meeting, and I take some responsibility for this, it was not, I was not aware that my members had not received the final materials on which they needed to vote in a timely manner. And so questions arose, and we simply didn't have the time or the expertise to answer them sufficiently. And it just became clear that the opportunity to take 2 weeks and to come back next Monday, so that we had the people we needed in the room to sufficiently answer people's questions, were present. I, as Mary Jane suggested, was part, as was Dr. Freeman, part of discussions that go back. I think I certainly remember a meeting in December 2019. So we now have lined up a number of people who will be joining us on Monday night, so that my board members can ask any questions they have and get the information they need to feel comfortable to move forward.
I think the one thing that we're very fortunate is that we have 2 people on the Board of Finance that could do this that are very qualified to do it. So that's the one thing I will say. So Jeff, I know you're on. I don't know if there's anything you.
No, I think I kind of echo what you were saying, that, you know, we've got two qualified candidates. I think, you know, Bob is has the more recent experience with the pension. So just on the basis of that alone, I think that's why I would lean towards Bob in favoring him for the position, if he's willing to do it. So
I am. I don't think there's,
I mean, on the flip side, Veronica has been on the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen for much longer and has some insight that maybe would be helpful when we're making decisions on this. So I don't know what the next move is, but if it's to nominate somebody, I'm going to nominate Veronica Wallace for it. So,
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
yes, Chairman.
Okay. Then do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay. In terms of further discussion, you know that I'm not a big fan of anything that's going along a party line.
right.
And that puts me a little bit in a difficult position, which is fine. I am really, this tells you a little bit about this board, and it tells you a little bit about what we're composed of. You know, you hate to have two people from different parties going, you know, saying that they're, you know, willing to do it. And I truly do appreciate that. And when I look at the qualifications, I think listen, I could sit here and go through pros and cons about longevity and, you know, being on the pension committee, being on the Board of Selectmen. We go either way on this. Going into this, I'm going to just state, and I hope my colleagues on my side realize this. No hard feelings, but going in, I looked at Bob Hartman as being the person who was involved in the pension committee, who was involved in a lot of early discussions about the OPEB trust. And that would have been my first choice going in. And so when Veronica said something, I thought, well, yeah, she's just as, you know, qualified for differing reasons. So for that being said, you know, I started out this conversation simply saying, thank you, Veronica, and thank you, Jonathan, for stepping up. With Bob Hartman saying that he'd be willing to do it, I said that that would probably be my choice. So I'm going to stick to that as we go through, because that's the way I felt going in. So with that, is there any further discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. I
Yep.
had some time to look at some of the sections of the OPEB trust. How long is the appointment for the Board of Finance member? Is it for a year?
That's a great question. I think it's until there's a decision to either, if I read correctly, it's when they're no longer on the board or can no longer serve or choose not to, and then we replace.
Okay, so kind of an appointment each time the board shifts around.
It's an appointment until either that person, that representative, is no longer able to serve on the board for any reason, or chooses not to serve anymore.
Okay, I didn't even get to that section, so just curious.
Yeah, am I correct on that, Mary Jane? Just, I know you are very intimate with these documents, so
Yeah.
May not be that intimately involved.
Yeah, yeah, I know. You know, I'm the last one to ask a question about which party, because I could care less, but there is no end date to the appointment.
Okay.
I'm looking for the document. I don't see it.
I don't remember seeing it, so I would have to go back and review it, so.
It was in all of that. There was a paragraph. There was something in there that said about
Till they serve.
longevity,
Till they
or,
serve,
you know,
yeah.
term.
Yeah, I know there's no end date like a normal board or commission, you know, which you would appoint for 2, 4, 6
Right.
years, whatever.
Right.
This is just a continuing. So for the pension board, you know, when the board members changed on the Board of Selectmen, they had to change who the pension, trustee was, so.
Mhm. Right. Okay. Any further discussion on the Board of Finance members?
Just, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I need to nominate Bob Hartman, but I don't think Bob's formally been nominated, so.
Well,
He
we've got a
he
mo-
indicated a
You have
willingness.
to
I know
vote
he-
me down.
we've got,
I was trying to do
we've
that.
got a
but maybe
motion on the
make a
table
motion.
for Veronica Wallace, and we have a
Right.
second.
My
And so-
apologies.
And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the question.
You're
And
going
so
to
all
do
in
that,
favor-
or somebody could withdraw the motion.
Wait a minute, so I was,
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. You can either call the question or someone could withdraw the motion.
I am calling the question. All
Okay.
in favor of Veronica Wallace signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those not in favor, opposed, signify by saying nay. Nay.
I guess.
Nay.
Have. Okay, so the motion does not carry. So,
I could make a formal motion to nominate Robert Hartman, if that's necessary.
okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Is there further discussion? And I think my only discussion is I've already talked, so that's why I'm making the decision I am, so. Those in favor of Bob Hartman signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay,
Thank you, Veronica. I think you would have done a great job too.
I think so too. No offense against you, Bob, really. Really.
I can tell you.
Perfectly fine.
okay. We are moving on with our agenda. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Item number 7. We are going to now receive and take action on tax collector's recommendation of uncollectibles to be transferred to the suspense list. We've been provided with a memo from our tax collector, Deborah Milano, on April 23rd regarding personal property, motor vehicle, and motor vehicle supplemental. That amounts to $45,006.90. That is being recommended to be transferred to the suspense tax book. And that's for grand list year 2019. Do we have any discussion regarding that? Mary Jane, anything you want to add regarding that? No, pretty self-explanatory.
I guess, yes, I can. I just like to always note that even though items go on suspense, it does not mean we stop trying to collect them.
That is right. Okay, so with that, I will, someone else.
I'll just add that when you're kind of forgetful about whether you sent in your bill or not, you're a little late when you're looking at the suspense list. I was just doing that, but I'm good this year.
That's good. Good to hear. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the tax collector's recommendation per her memo and suspense list dated April 23rd, 2021 to transfer to suspense for the 2019 grand list the uncollectible amount of $45,006.90.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Moving on to item number 8, discuss and take possible action on engagement letter with CLA, also known as Clifton Larson Allen, and authorize the chairman to sign. This is just formality for the most part based on the agreement or the RFP that went out for auditors 2 years ago. Are we at 2 years ago? I believe. So this is their engagement letter that would allow them to, or allows them through us to audit, provide auditing services for the year ending June 30th, 2021. Are there any questions regarding that?
I don't see any numbers in there. What are they being paid?
I can get you that information, but this isn't the contract with them for the money has already been awarded and signed at the time of the award. This is the annual engagement letter, which just outlines the duties and responsibilities of the auditor and management.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this? Otherwise, entertain a motion to engage the firm of CLA to provide audit and not audit services for the year ending June 30th, 2021.
I should let you read it. So moved.
It's okay. You've moved sec. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Committee reports, building permits.
Oh, I just want to say, Mike, I'm going to need you to sign that. If you can even print it out and sign and scan a copy to me, be fine.
I can get that to you tomorrow morning. That is correct.
Absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything under committee reports, number 9? Item number 10, old business. I had 2 items under old business. One was a simple thank you to the voters who did come out and voted on the budget on April 20th. Very much appreciate everyone who did make it out. Based on that result, I just wanted to recap very quickly that we had our mill rate. We set the mill rate, as you heard early in the meeting, and the mill rate tax increase was just under 1%. So that was the result of the budget vote. So thank you everyone for coming out. The second item is regarding in-person meetings. It seems to be, we bring this up every month. I do understand that the governor's executive orders have been extended. I believe it's July 20th. They've been extended. So I'm not sure exactly how that affects us, except that we can continue on with virtual meetings based on the executive order. Once those get sunset or go away, then I believe that ends up affecting our ability to do virtual meetings unless we have the appropriate technology. So I'm looking to a first selectman regarding the Board of Selectmen's discussions on these items, or this particular item, and in-person voting, and what their direction is right now.
In terms of in-person voting, that does not necessarily apply to us at this point, since we're past the referendum. However, the governor's the 2 executive orders that dealt with meetings, remote and hybrid meetings, were enacted into statute last week. Governor hasn't signed the bill, but has given indication that he is in agreement with the legislature. So they will continue. Those will continue until July 20th. So there is still no change. We can continue to have remote meetings and hybrid meetings through to at least July 20th. Board of Selectmen has opted, owing to the fact that we have some technology in the Selectmen's wing conference room, to conduct our meetings via a hybrid manner. And we'll see how well that works out. We've had some experience with the hybrid meetings in the past that weren't exactly stellar, but we think we can control it. One of the challenges with hybrid meetings is how do you alert the public to how many people can actually attend in person. So we are working with town council right now to determine whether or not we'll have a lottery or people have to sign up if they want to attend in person. I'm not suggesting that there are going to be people beating down the doors to come to Monday morning meetings at the Board of Selectmen, but nonetheless, we need to be prepared for the eventuality that if someone shows up and there's not enough room for them, how do we hold the meeting so that person can participate via Zoom? But those details we've worked out. Fortunately for the Board of Selectmen, our first meeting in June is not until June 7th. So we've got some time to work through some of the mechanics of that. There are other boards and commissions, most notably the Zoning Board of Appeals, who was looking to go to in-person meeting after the 19th of May, which was the original expiration date of the governor's executive orders, executive powers. However, they have decided not to do that based on that same information I just shared with you about the governor's orders being extended. The whole issue really comes down to whether or not, based on state statutes, whether or not a board member can cast a vote if they are not in physical attendance of a meeting. And that's the crux of this issue. That is prohibited in state statutes via either telephone call or via the newer technology, Zoom. That is why it's been extended. And there is probably going to be some legislation that will go beyond just extending the governor's powers for 2 months. I understand the legislature is going to take this up as for a longer term fix, knowing that hybrid meetings may well be part of all of our futures.
Great. Thank you for the update. Appreciate that. I think just based on what I'm hearing for the June meeting, I think it's just safe to say that we will remain virtual for the June meeting and keep it the way it is at this point, seeing the executive orders have been extended and we're doing such a fine job virtually meeting over the last, I don't know, how many months has it been? 15 months now? So
28.
Lost count.
I'm kind of curious how our board members feel about meeting now in person.
I will speak and say that I'm ready. I've also been fully vaccinated, and so I feel fortunate that I'm in that position, and I don't have any worries. That's my one person opinion. Everyone else is going to have their own way, and until we are unanimous on that, we will, or unless we're told otherwise, I have no issue staying virtual until such time. But if everybody else feels comfortable with meeting in person, then I am personally good with it. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I'll go. At my age and health, I'm comfortable coming in, but I wouldn't want anyone else to feel obligated.
Veronica, Megan, Ken?
I'm willing to stay with it for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got my immunity, so give me a couple weeks with my 19-month-old and I'll tell you how I feel.
Congratulations. Good,
Well, Megan, to that point though, you have a young son at home. So just because you're vaccinated, he's not vaccinated, right? So that is something to be concerned about, that you could be a carrier. And so those are the things that we talk about. And if that's the case, then I have no problem continuing in the way that we're going.
I think the bigger issue is if we all know where we stand and we're all okay, we're all vaccinated, but it still doesn't speak to whomever from the public might visit. So,
Yeah,
and that becomes the issue.
That's true too. So we'll do this
by
month
the way,
a month.
Mr. Chairman, even if you did return to in-person meetings, you would have the right to require masks be worn.
True. That's true. Okay. I don't have anything. Anybody else have anything under old business? Anything under new business?
I do have something under new business, please.
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
It occurs to me that, most of our time is spent with looking at current revenue and current expenditures or budgets, but we don't spend much time on finance and how the town finances itself with bonds and bonding. So I wonder if the committee would like to hear a presentation from our financial advisors, Hightower, to talk about bonding, the mechanics of it, how we compare with our comparable towns, strategies that we might consider, and anything that we're not thinking about. It just seems to be it's something that gets voted on by the electorate, but I don't know that we're sending may not understand the message as well as we might.
I would say that's a great idea, and the more I can learn about it, I think I'm always up for that. And I think the time to do it would be coming up in the next month or two when we're not as busy in the budget season or crunching numbers. Not to say that we don't have end of the year numbers, but when we have an agenda that isn't as packed, to have a presentation. I think that would be helpful. I like that idea. Anybody else? Thoughts?
I agree. I agree that I think it's a good idea. Also, anything that would hopefully make me able to better communicate to people out in the community as to why we're doing what we're doing and what the strategies are behind bonding and how we go about it would be helpful too. So I think
And as Mary Jane alluded to earlier, they're bound to have an opinion on the outlook for interest rates.
Agreed. Bob, I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, take that one step further and invite our bond advisors to be part of that discussion.
Sure.
I was fortunate enough to listen to a presentation given by both, it's FIA or whoever they are now, Hightower, and our bond advisors around the town of West Hartford when they went out for pension obligation bonds.
Yeah.
Which is typically a procedure used for distressed municipalities. West Hartford is not one. So I had specifically asked the question of our bond advisor, one of the bond advisors, our partners, Mark Chapman, and about whether or not we could use that vehicle for the OPEB trust to fund that immediately through bond proceeds, which means we could eliminate the reliance on our annual budget to pay those benefits. And there was an interesting answer there. They said, well, you need to concern yourself with the implied subsidy of lumping that group, the seniors, the OPEB folks, into a pool that included 20-somethings, 30-somethings, and 40-somethings. So I think there's some great opportunity to talk about all of these kind of opportunities.
So it's just a matter of scheduling it into a meeting to have that discussion. I would think that probably, just going through history, I mean, August and September are usually 2 months that are pretty quiet, unless I'm missing something. July, I know we've got a couple of reports to go over because we have the new, is it July that we have the new year and the older year, or is it August that we go over both? I think maybe
August.
Is it
I think it's August.
So maybe we could plan to have something, presentation in maybe July, in 2 months. Is that possible to bring them on board for that, or?
I'd just like to ask a clarification.
Please
And
do.
when Bob was talking, I thought he was talking the Bill Lindsay type of financial advisor. Is that what you were speaking, or?
Well, they handle our refinancings. I was thinking of them.
That's who you were speaking of, right?
However, and of course, when you step into FIA land, these are the people who advise pension. That's a bigger presentation. And then Matt's got the other group. So maybe we should sit down and refine this and think.
I think so. I'd like to have a little bit of conversation about that first.
But my point is basically about so the finance committee members understand better how we finance ourselves outside tax revenues and those mechanics. So I was kind of starting small, I'll be honest with you. Shall we start small and see where it goes, or do you want to
That makes sense.
swing for the fence?
Yeah, I think Bill Lindsay and his new group, I think would be a good place to start.
Great.
So we can check and see if they're available for our July meeting. And if not, then we could look at August or September. Either one is probably, September might be better. Just August, it's middle of the summer. We don't want a meeting that goes on for 3 hours.
Well,
and we have a lot to go over in the August meeting. We have 2 sets of financials. So
for a presentation like that, would there be an objection starting a half hour early?
I usually like to keep the time consistent.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't, that's just me. I don't like changing start times on meetings if I can help it.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Great. Thank you. Mary Jane, that's something you'll look into, right? Okay, thank you. Anything else under new business?
just one kind of housekeeping matter. We're supposed to be turning in our computers to be upgraded, right?
After this meeting, yes.
Your iPad, yeah, the iPads.
Within the next couple of days, not right now, Jeff. You don't have to
Right,
drive to town hall.
I'm not even I'm not yet out of Massachusetts yet, so that I'm not getting there tonight. So
Okay. I only have one other item under new business, and I just want to make sure everyone knows. So I can't remember the last time I did not attend a Board of Finance meeting. I have to say, I think it was one of the unfortunate snowstorms budget hearings that I missed. And I will not be able to attend next month due to a prior commitment. So I will not be at the meeting, but our illustrious Vice Chair, Mr. Gammerman, will be leading the charge. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, that I will not be here. So, and I look forward to watching the video of a Board of Finance meeting for a change, not being part of it. But it'll be different. I've gotten used to this every third Monday for years and years and years. So, I just want to let everyone know, if there's nothing under new business, public forum. And with that, my laptop just went off. So I guess there's only one thing left. That's motion to adjourn.
A motion that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everyone.
Enjoy the warm weather while you can.
Have a good night.
You too. Drive safe, Jeff.